Welcome to Math with Malia. Today we're covering Savvas enVision Algebra 1, Topic 11, Lesson 5, Two-Way Frequency Tables. After this lesson, you will be able to organize data in two-way frequency tables and use those tables to make inferences. We've got some new vocabulary: conditional relative frequency, joint relative frequency, marginal frequency, and marginal relative frequency, and we'll learn what those definitions mean. In the Explore and Reason, we have this scoreboard. Baseball teams at a high school and a college play at the same stadium. Results for every game last season are given for both teams. So you can see you have their home game wins and you have their away game wins. Okay. And we're comparing the high school and the college. So we have it on the scoreboard. It is really already organized into a two-way frequency table. Okay, we can just make up the rows and columns like this, and we have our two-way frequency table. We would just need to add totals over here and a total here, and then we would have our complete two-way frequency table. And then we could compare percentages of games won at home and games won away, and then we could even compare percentages of home games between the high school and the college and percentage of away games won between the high school and the college. So there's two ways we can look at it: comparing them along one row or comparing in the columns. So how do we use two-way frequency tables to analyze data? In example 1, we have our two-way frequency table, and it's a food chain restaurant planning to add a vegetarian item to its menu. So they already have burgers and pizza. Now they're going to offer a veggie burger and a veggie pizza. And they surveyed customers to ask which one they would prefer. And the results are in the table. So here's some of our first two new vocabulary terms. Joint frequency is the frequency at the joint of a column or row. So it's just where a column and a row meet. Okay, so it's the intersection of a column and a row. Marginal frequency, think of what a margin is. Margins on your paper is something on the outside. So marginal frequency is what is in the outside or the margins of our table. Really, it's just the totals of each row and each column. Okay. And we can see here in this box in the bottom right column, that's the total of everyone surveyed. I like to tell my students that's the total. So the total males and females surveyed. So whenever you're looking for out of how many people were surveyed, this is the box you're going to look at, that lower right corner box. And we can also see that we can look at the totals of everyone who likes the veggie burgers, so the total is 110, and the totals of everyone who preferred the veggie pizza was 115. We can also look going across the row just at the males. So we had 90 total males surveyed, and then we could look at the row just for the females. We have 135 total females that were surveyed. And if we are adding up our totals, they should work both ways, going up and down the columns and across the rows. So our totals should all work both ways for marginal frequency. So again, joint frequencies indicate the frequency of a single option from one category, a row and a column. For instance, the frequency of males choosing a veggie burger. The marginal frequency indicates the total frequency of each option or category. So meaning out of all the females, which ones preferred veggie. Okay. So the joint frequencies suggest, if I'm looking at the joint frequencies, out of everyone, 50 males preferred veggie burger and 40 males preferred the veggie pizza. Okay. And the females, 60 preferred the veggie burger and 75 preferred the veggie pizza. Okay. So we can compare those percentages. Even though more females were surveyed, we can still see that out of the total 135 females that were surveyed, more still wanted the veggie pizza. Even though more females preferred the veggie burger than the males, 50 to 60, but more females were surveyed in total. So we're looking at out of the total females surveyed. So out of the total females surveyed, out of 135, 75 preferred the veggie pizza. For the males, out of the 90 that were surveyed, 50 preferred the veggie burger. Okay. And then if I'm comparing out of everyone surveyed, we would do out of 225. So out of 225, 75 or 115 total people, males and females, preferred the veggie pizza. And out of 225, the total males and females, the total people surveyed, 110 preferred the veggie burger. So still we can see, even though the males preferred the veggie burger, since more females were surveyed, this number tells us more people would prefer the veggie pizza. It's not much different though. 110 is not much different than 115. So we would probably want to look at percentages of just the males and percentages of just the females. We would want to focus on these frequencies here to make a determination. So the joint frequencies suggest that the male customers, out of all of the males, they prefer veggie burgers. And the female customers, out of all the females, they preferred veggie pizzas over the veggie burgers. The marginal frequencies, again, didn't show much difference. There wasn't much difference between 110 and 115. So if they're going to make a decision on if they should add the veggie burger or the veggie pizza, they should look at the frequencies for just male and just female, the joint frequencies. So what did the marginal frequencies tell us? Well, again, the marginal frequencies tell us the total, and so we know that from those totals, we had 90 total males that were surveyed, and we had 135 females that were surveyed. Again, more females responded to the survey or answered the survey. Example 2, interpreting a two-way relative frequency table. So now we're going to look at relative frequency, not just the joint frequency. So the relative frequency is going to be specific to the total. So this is out of the total. So whenever you're talking about relative frequency, it's relative to the total. Okay, relative to the total. So we're looking at this box here, out of 225. So you'll notice when we're finding the percentages, we're just dividing each frequency by that total in the lower right corner, out of 225. So 50 males out of the total surveyed, 225 is 22%. 60 females out of the total 225 is about 27%, and so on. So we're calculating the percentages. You will see in frequency tables often the percentage represented as a decimal, or you can see it represented as a percent. So just know you can see it either way. So of the customers surveyed, about 22% were males who selected veggie burgers. That's this box right here. And 27% were females who selected veggie burgers. So a greater percent of females than males selected veggie burgers. 27% is greater than 22%. So again, just remember you're dividing the frequency by the total count by the lower right corner box when you're talking about relative frequency. How can we tell whether a greater percentage of customers surveyed selected veggie burgers or veggie pizza? So if we're looking at just the veggie burger and the veggie pizza, well, we're comparing the bottom right corner. So let's look here. Now we're looking out of everyone surveyed, how many total people wanted the veggie burger? 49%. Out of all of the people surveyed, how many total people, male and female, preferred the veggie pizza? 51%. So more people preferred the veggie pizza, 51% over 49% who preferred the veggie burger. Again, that's out of the total in the lower right corner. Example 3, using data from these first two examples, a marketing team concludes that females prefer veggie burgers more than men do. Well, is that true? Do the results support this conclusion? So now we're going to look at what's called conditional relative frequency. The conditional part tells us we're looking at a specific row or a specific column in our frequency table. Okay, so we're looking for the females. They're talking about females, so that's the row we're looking at. We're looking at just the female row. Okay, and so since there were 135 total females surveyed, that's our total we're going to be calculating our percentage of. So out of 135, 60 females preferred the veggie burger, which is about 44%, and out of the total 135 females surveyed, 75 preferred the veggie pizza, which is about 56%. So actually, according to this data, more females preferred the veggie pizza. If I'm just looking at the condition of only the females surveyed, more preferred the veggie pizza, not the veggie burger. So their conclusion was not supported by the data. So when you're doing conditional frequency, you're going to look at a marginal frequency, not the total, not the total in the lower right-hand box. You're going to be looking at a different total from a row or a column. So what conclusion could the marketing team make about the female and male preferences for veggie pizza? Well, we can see that the females do prefer veggie pizza more than the males do. Okay. So we'll go back and look at the percentages. Out of everyone, so now I'm looking at a row, out of everyone who wanted veggie pizza, 56% were female and 44% were male. So more females, a higher percentage of females surveyed preferred the veggie pizza. So this time our condition was out of the total of veggie pizzas surveyed. Okay. Example 4. The marketing team also concludes that there is a greater variation between the percentage of men and women who like veggie pizza than there is for those who prefer veggie burgers. So we're comparing now men and women who like veggie burgers and men and women who like the veggie pizza. And we're looking for differences in those percentages. So calculating the conditional relative frequency, again, we're looking at just a total from a row or a column. And we're going to look at just those who want veggie burgers first. So just those who wanted veggie burgers, our total is 110 people surveyed preferred the veggie burger. 50 of them were males and 60 were females. So our percentages are 45% and 55%, a difference of about 10%. For those surveyed who preferred the veggie pizza, we had a total of 115 people surveyed preferred the veggie pizza, 40 of whom were male and 75 were female. So 35% of the males preferred veggie pizza, 65% preferred the veggie, of the females preferred the veggie pizza. So there's a greater difference between 65% and 35%. So there's a greater difference between males and females with the veggie pizza. So this does support their conclusion that there is a greater variation between those who like veggie pizza. So what conclusion could we draw if the percentages for male and female customers were the same across the rows in the table? So if the percentages were the same across the rows, like if it was 45% and 45%, then there's no real significant difference between the males and females, right? Because the conditional frequency would not change. Example 5, a random sample of spectators entering a stadium were asked whether they were cheering for the Bears or the Tigers in a championship game. The sample was categorized according to gender and team. So again, we're looking at males and which team they were cheering for, and the females and which team they were cheering for. And then we have people who were cheering for the Bears and people who were cheering for the Tigers. Okay, and here is our total. 230 people were surveyed coming into the stadium. Okay, so what does the joint relative frequency 65 over 230 represent? Well, where do we find that number 65? We find it right here in that joint of male and cheering for the Tigers. Okay, so 65 is the joint frequency, 230 is the total people surveyed. And so it represents the number of male Tiger fans who were in the stadium that day out of the total people. Okay, what does the frequency 49 over 93? Now let's look where we find those numbers. Here's 49 and here's 93. So now what are we looking at? We're just looking at our female population, our female people who came to the game. So out of all the females, out of 93, okay, just the females, 49 of them were Bears fans. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Female Bears fans, that's it. Just out of all the females, which percentage were cheering for the Bears? what does the conditional relative frequency 72 over 137 represent? So again, let's go back and we'll find those numbers. So here's 72 and out of 137, and we can see that we're looking at our males only. So we're looking at just out of the males who were in attendance, 72 were cheering for the Bears. Okay, so that was another conditional frequency. We're just looking at the male row. Okay, you made it to the concept summary. Make sure to come back for more videos and leave any questions you have in the comments.